SparkMES, an MES accelerator for ignition.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining today and tuning in today to learn about the SparkMES platform. The goal today is we're going to be trying to do a high-level overview of a lot of just what are the different parts of SparkMES. What does it represent? Where does it fit in? What kind of things can it do? And try to just give you a little bit of a taste of the different things that the platform can do. So before we get started, my name is Eric Mormon. I am a Spark architect here at Flexware Innovation. And really my role over the past years has been to kind of guide and direct the implementation of SparkMES and help to implement it at the various different customers that we've deployed all the different components of Spark at. So looking forward to kind of getting to show you what the team here has been working on and seeing how it can benefit you guys. So with that, I'm going to start out by going through a PowerPoint just to talk a little bit, level set a little bit on what SparkMES is and kind of where it's at in the field, and then we'll get into actually looking at some screens and some of the fun stuff. So let's get into it. Maybe. Yeah, so first I want to talk a little bit about SparkMES and what it is and where it fits here. So here at Flexware, we've done MES solutions for a long time, since we were founded in 1996. And we've done MES solutions everywhere from the right side of the screen, the stick-built MES systems where you're doing custom C# code. Everything is completely from scratch, and you're just building it from the ground up. And we've done everywhere from that, and we've done everything all the way over to the off-the-shelf MES packages, where you get kind of the larger MES packages that you can buy, purchase, and you can install them, and you really get them. They're pretty much, you drop them in, and you can do some level of customization to them, but they're going to have a lot of the features out of the box. And then we've done everywhere in between, right? And so really, when you're looking at starting your MES journey, or you're looking at a new MES platform or something like that, you really have to evaluate where on this spectrum do you fall, right? With like the commercial off-the-shelf MES systems, the benefit of that, right, is you're going to get a lot of features out of the box, a very comprehensive feature set, a lot of the typical things you'd expect with products that you can do, but you're also going to have a higher license cost, a higher total cost of ownership. And you're still going to have some customization, probably not as much as the other ones, but yeah, that's kind of one of those that. And now on the opposite side with the stick built, you've got where you're going to be able to make it completely custom to what you need to do, right? With the off-the-shelf one, you're kind of doing whatever the off-the-shelf wants you to do. With a stick belt, you're going to be able to really make it flexible, customized to your process, so it works for you. But you're going to have a lot, and it's also going to have a lower cost as far as like licensing goes, but you're going to have a lot of technical effort and design that goes into making that system. Then there's the everything in the middle, right? The platform-based MES, right, which is kind of in the middle of the two, where you have a platform that you can base your MES off of, so you're not starting just from scratch, but you're getting these like types of screens, MES type of functionality out of the box you can start from, but then you can customize it, add features, and all of that fun stuff. So this is kind of in the middle of the two. This is probably going to have a lower cost overall than an off-the-shelf one, and it's going to give you more flexibility than off-the-shelf one system, but it's still going to give you some of the out of the box functionality that you might not get with a stick built. But then obviously there's the drawbacks both ways. So really there's no right or wrong answer for which one of these three categories you fall into. It just depends on your team, what you're looking for, timelines, all that fun stuff. With SparkMES, where this falls into this and why I'm walking through this falls into this platform-based MES category, and maybe a little bit to the left of it, right? Where it's a package of MES functionality that you get out of the box that lets you start out and let you get started really quickly, prove value more quickly, but also giving you the flexibility to still do those levels of customization to really build it to the system you want it to be, and not have the different limitations you may get with something like an off-the-shelf, right? So that's kind of what we're looking at here. So let's talk a little bit now more about SparkMES as a whole. So what exactly is SparkMES? So SparkMES is a MES framework or an MES starter kit that is based on the Ignition platform. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about Ignition. Probably a lot of you have heard about it before, but if you haven't heard about it, definitely go look into it. It's a super cool platform. But as we've been doing these MES deployments, Ignition's been growing. We've been building out this framework on top of it, and it's been made to be a starter kit, allow for those customizations, to allow for flexibility, to have an MES system that matches your process. So what are the different components that goes into that? First, it is a modern MES, so it uses Ignition's perspective module, which means that all of the screens you're going to see today are all web-based, HTML5, React, using modern web technologies. This also means they're scalable to your phone, tablets, all that fun stuff, if you need them to be, so they can fit on whatever types of interfaces you're really wanting to. A big part of the SparkMES platform comes in these middle two, I'd say, with configurability and scalability, right? Like we said, the real benefit of going this way is that you want a system that can really match your process and can match the various different types of processes that you have. And so really we put a lot of effort into that. And there's a couple different ways with SparkMES that you can go about this configurability and the scalability. First, I would say is like the deeply technical way of doing it. The way SparkMES works is that SparkMES is not a black box at all. It is a, it comes with just native Python scripts, SQL queries, Ignition code, Ignition screens, all that fun stuff. So if you're familiar with the Ignition platform, you can see and add your own touch to different things inside of the platform if you want to. We're not hiding things to you. We can go and you can do any level of customization on the back end you need to really make the platform match what you need and really build the MES system that's your MES system. The other part of that, though, too, is right. You don't want to have to go to technical like back-end coding all the time every time you want to make a change. There's also a high level of configurability for the more day-to-day activities that you can do through front-end configuration interfaces. And I'll show some of those a little bit today. I'm not going to go too deep into them just because you can really get into the weeds with those. But there is a series of web-based configuration spaces that let you do things like setting up production models, setting up routing and bombs and all of that fun stuff for your different routes. So really that kind of flexibility you want to be able to have and let you have that control of your process without having to get into the back end of the system. Lastly, and I think also another appeal to a lot of our customers is the solution ownership fact of this. So I kind of talked about this already a little bit, but with the SparkMES platform, this isn't something where like, hey, if you have a technical team, you have to worry about like voiding warranties or calling us and having us make any changes to the platform so that you can do things right. We want this to be a partnership. We'd like this to be a partnership with this. And so if you have a technical team that can look at the framework and own it and make the changes to it, like that's cool, right? We want to work with you. And the other part about this too, with the solution ownership, is that since this is not a product, that means that when we start a project for a customer, the features that we're doing for that project are tailored for that customer, right? So it's not where, we would have to take any feature request you have and we'd have to go say, oh, well, how do we make this generic so it can work for everybody and push it out to everybody, right? We're going to make changes that are specific to your process. You're getting the system that works best for you and not necessarily for everybody else. It's a system for you, for the customer. So really that's a big draw for some of our different customers. So I'll go through one more slide here just to talk a little bit more about this. And I've talked through some of these already. So again, the SparkMES is built on top of the Ignition platform, utilizing the normal Ignition tools. So again, if you've done any of like the Ignition trainings, you've used it for other stuff, you already have Ignition stood up in your plant. This can just sit right on top of that and work just fine. It comes with hundreds of perspective and vision templates. Really, the perspective templates are the more important one. We don't really use vision anymore for the most part. But we have these templates out of the box that you can mix and match them to build the dashboards you want, or you have the dashboards that come out of the box with it, which we'll be showing today. It does have the ability to do role-based security. So whether that means integrating with Active Directory, whether it means using Spark's built-in security or using Ignition security, a lot of flexibility with how we lock down who can access what, who can hit what buttons, and all that fun stuff. So I'd mentioned that it is a perspective front end, so it is web-based, meaning it can be shown on different devices if you need to. So if you want to see a report on your phone, right, because you don't have your computer with you, then you can do that sort of thing. It's not a problem. It does utilize a MS SQL backend. So this is hundreds of stored procedures and database tables that, again, it all comes out of the box where you're not having to create all that stuff from scratch like you may have to otherwise. You kind of get that from day one. They're tested, you can use them, and they just serve as a good founding block for the functionality of what we're trying to do with your implementation. And kind of with that, you also get the modular scripting packages. There's a lot of Python code that drives this interface with the database and the screens and all that fun stuff. And then, of course, it comes with operator manuals, configuration specs that we can provide for your implementation to help you get off the ground running, help train the trainer and get things moving in your plant, and help to drive the adoption throughout the facility. Yeah, so really, in all of this, that's really what SparkMES is. Hopefully that makes more sense. You can kind of think about it in the same way you may think of more like open source type things, where it's really a starter kit that you can use to customize to make whatever you want. So with that, and I should have said this at the beginning, if you have any questions during this, feel free to just type them into the chat, and Dwayne is listening, and he'll interrupt me and ask me those questions, and I can answer this when they come in. So feel free to do that. But with that, I'm gonna actually hop in and start showing some screens. I'm kind of done with going through PowerPoints here. So let's walk through that. I am going to, and let's walk through some actual screens. But before we do that, I do want to talk a little bit more about the structure of SparkMES. So we realized too, like as a part of the scalability sort of thing we were talking about, a big part of having a successful MES deployment is having a system that can scale appropriately with you going through this journey. MES is not really a you drop in, you have everything from day one. Usually, it's usually a journey of getting there and evolving and making sure it's matching your process and you're driving adoption and all that fun stuff in a good incremental fashion. And so, what comes with that is a lot of times you're going to want to take and start from a small piece of MES and maybe drive that and then build on top of it, right? So maybe day one, you're not ready for the whole scope of MES, but you want to start out with like OEE, for example, right? And you want to be able to start out with that, get that going, and then you want to start adding track and trace after that, or add scheduling after that, or anything like that. And now some of you may be ready to start with multiple packages at the same time, and then maybe you want to evolve later, maybe you don't. So, but we also want to have that flexibility so where you can build the system you want and not have to buy a bunch of features that you don't really need or you don't really want, kind of like you may have to do with an off-the-shelf platform. So with that, we have broken up SparkMES into these different packages that I'm showing on the screen here. So these packages, I'll say these top ones here, are really what we would traditionally call our SparkMES packages. So you can mix and match these. You pay for what you want, following a lot of Ignition's usual pricing structure, to where you pay for the different packages you want. So you're building the system you want and not having to have a lot of extra bloat in the system. So one thing I will call out with these two, for those that are Ignition savvy and are familiar with Ignition, we do call these packages for a reason. They are not Ignition modules. There are no Ignition modules used currently in the SparkMES platform that are like ours, right? It's all just using native Ignition modules, and so that's again how we get that flexibility, right? So I do want to give just a brief overview of each of these packages, what they do, and then I'll start going into brief, real high-level demos of each one of these packages and showing you just some of the screens and functionality that they can do, again, without getting too deep into it. So talking through some of these here. So the first one, and what I would say is probably our most popular package, is the OEE package. So probably a lot of us are familiar with OEE, probably are doing or looking at doing OEE in some one way, shape, or form. This has everything to do with how do you do performance tracking, right? How do you track what's the uptime of versus downtime of my machines? What are the in-feeds, the amount of parts that are coming into my machines, the amount of parts that are going out of them, and the amount of scrap that's being produced, right? Tracking all those different metrics, tracking how does the cycle times, how are we comparing against cycle times as our part numbers change, and all that fun stuff. And really getting that data and being able to analyze that data in such a way that you could start driving change, right? You can see what are my heaviest hitters downtime wise. Maybe I need to go figure out how to add some, automation to make sure I'm getting that downtime. Or maybe I need to go make a process change to appoint that downtime code. Or maybe I need to make a process change because I'm producing too much scrap and it's because this value is too high or something like that, right? These are the kind of things that OEE can really help you with and help you get started with. And that's all what all this package is about. So we'll show that one in just a second here. So the next one, so like I said, OEE is probably our most popular. Track and trace is our largest package. Track and trace covers a lot of ground that may be broken up in other systems. So track and trace has everything to do with how do you take raw materials and run them through the line to produce the finished good and track everything about it while it's on the line, right? So that includes tracking process parameters, that includes doing tracking consumptions, it includes validating those consumptions and process parameters to make sure you're producing everything correctly. It also means writing down parameters, right? Maybe we need to handshake with the equipment to make sure you're not letting bad parts going through different stations, right? Adding that level of process control, all of that is possible, not required, but possible with track and trace. And then at the end of the line, getting a nice genealogy report that you can have. This is, you can see everything about, hey, this assembly or this batch came down the floor. What is everything that happened to it from conception to when it went out the door? So, or when it came off the line. So that's what track and trace is. Covers a lot of ground there. These other packages here, so scheduling. So scheduling is really the founding blocks for how do you do order scheduling. And it also helps with some shift scheduling if you want to do more like dynamic shift scheduling. So this says, hey, I have 10 orders I need to do, and I have 3 lines. How do I lay out those orders? Let's lay out those orders across the lines to make sure we're doing those in the right order and we're tracking to get everything done appropriately. And it also has to, when you're using it with OEE, when are my weekends, right? When can't I work? When are my breaks, right? When did I take breaks in there and making sure the schedule can conform around this. Inventory management is an interesting one. A lot of people are probably used to this not being an MES functionality, but more of an ERP functionality. But we do find that there's a lot of value in having some inventory capabilities inside of an MES system. So this package is not as full featured of an inventory package, or not as doesn't have as much stuff in it as you may have in like an ERP system. But what it does do is it gives you this base framework for being able to track inventory, being able to create parts, receive inventory, move inventory around, edit dimensions of those parts as they're moving around, edit the quality of those parts and making sure the inventory is not getting someplace that it shouldn't get, and all of that fun stuff, right? That's really what the inventory package is looking at. And also making sure you're back flushing all of that to an ERP system, right? And staying in sync with the ERP system. Talking about ERP systems, right? Next is the ERP integration package. The ERP integration package is really just it's a plugin architecture that we've made that makes it very easy for us to integrate MES ERP information. So it lets us write some custom logic if we need to get data from your ERP system. So if you have a complicated ERP system, that's fine, or something that's maybe a little less known, right? Where it's fine. It allows us to write that logic to connect to the ERP system, but then it handles getting the information where it needs to go in the MES system. So that's what the ERP integration package is for. Quality has to do with tracking, doing like failure analysis on parts. So if something goes wrong in the line or with something in inventory, then it will help track the quality engineers through how do you track what's wrong with it, how do you disposition it and make sure it's getting routed appropriately, and all that fun stuff. Kitting package has to do with building kits, and those kits can then be used to create kitting orders. Those kits can be used to make sure you're getting your inventory ready before a production run, so you can minimize downtime with on the line, so you have all this stuff together when you start running. Or it can be used to create kits that you're going to ship out the door, if that's part of your business model. And lastly is the shipping package. The shipping package just is really just a way for you to track, hey, we have all these boxes in inventory. We're going to ship them to customer ABC. And we need to get them out of inventory, track that they were shipped there, potentially print a label for them, and all that fun stuff, and then track where they went. So,
hey, Eric.
What's up?
A question did come in that I believe you addressed, but I want to give you the opportunity to expand if you would like to.
Sure.
But somebody just simply asked what package the operations and or work orders are
Hmm.
maintained and managed in.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so that would fall under a track and trace package. Orders, work instructions, all of that stuff is in track and trace. Thanks for bringing that up because I didn't mention that at all. And I'll show that a little bit when we go to track and trace here. But yeah, so this would be, and the other thing I'll say about track and trace too is it can do orders. Maybe you don't use orders, right? Maybe you just do batch tracking, right? This can do batching. Maybe you just say, I'm going to run part ABC and we're going to run it until I tell you to stop, right? These are more continuous processes, right? We can do those kind of things as well. So we're not tied to orders, but this is where we would do our order management of the system. Does that make sense? We cool? All right,
Thank you.
let's keep rolling. And so now we've talked about all the packages. Hopefully that all makes sense on all the landscape we're looking at here. I'm just going to start walking through some of the packages. Again, I'm going to try to keep it pretty high level. So if you have any questions, please let Dwayne know. Yeah, we'll just see how far we get through these. So I'm going to start off and kind of go top to bottom. I'm going to be flipping around a little bit, but I'm going to start out with OEE. And let's take a look at that. So again, one thing I want to call out too here when I'm going through these dashboards, again, SparkMES is a flexible system. You are not tied to anything that you get out of the box, but this is the value we can bring day one. Where maybe otherwise you'd be starting from scratch, right? This is the flexibility you have the functionality you have from day one to prove value very quickly. All of the dashboards are customizable, right? If you want to change the widgets around, great. If you want to change color schemes, easy enough. All of that fun stuff is on the table. So what I want you to look at with these is first off, just, hey, like these are the types of dashboards that you could use for something like this. But then also, what is the functionality we have, right? Does it match? Does it fit? Or could it fit what you're wanting to do, right? And maybe we just need to change the way it looks and feels, right? So this dashboard here is an example of our line overview dashboard. Or here we're actually using it as like an enterprise overview, but it could also be a plant overview, a line overview, whatever you need it to be for your appropriate implementation. At the top, we have our production model here, right? So this is saying, hey, I can choose any location that I'm at right now, and I can see the OEE statistics for that location I'm at. So I'm seeing like the enterprise statistics. I can see all of my different child locations, all of my different plants and all that fun stuff, their OEE statistics, and see their different downtime states and if they're running and down and how much parts they produce, all of this kind of stuff, right? Again, OEE is about how do we track downtime codes, in-feed, out-feed, scrap counts, part numbers, all that fun stuff, so that you can use that for data analysis later, right? So this is just showing that information at a high level, letting you from one screen get a glance from that, but then also giving you the capabilities to dive into that information. So like here, like let's say I wanted to look at plant 203, right? I can say, okay, I want to go to 203, and boom, now I can see the OEE for plant 203. I can see its children lines OEEs and their statuses and all that fun stuff, and then their downtime codes. So you kind of get the idea, right? This is just an OEE dashboard for showing that kind of information, letting you see what are the highest downtime codes, all that fun stuff. And then we have other dashboards too that we can provide, right? That are come out of the box, right? So you can see stuff like, hey, what's our OEE of machines, or you can see trends over time of statistics, or Pareto's of our heaviest hitting downtime events, right? All of this just comes out of the box. All of these components are standalone components that you can mix and match on a dashboard however you want to. They just all take in a start and end date and a machine, like a location ID, right? And so you can really, if you have the know-how of Ignition, you can really use these as a baseline for building out dashboards that you want to use. The other thing I'll say about our OE package, because this is important too, if you do have manual processes, that is fine. The OE package of Spark can work completely manual, or it can work completely automated, or it can work anywhere in between, right? So we can give manual entry to let operators select data points. We can let them clarify data points that we're getting from the machine if those events need clarified, and provide further information. We can let them enter outfeed information, or we can get the outfeed information from a machine, right? And there's lots of different examples of how we could do that with the platform. And really how we do all of that depends on your configuration of the system, right? So again, like I said, we have a lot of this has been done through a front-end configuration app. Well, this is the front-end configuration app, our configuration workstation. And this screen really lets you do all of that, right? So from this screen, you can set up your production model. You can set up your different, this is not the right one. You can set up your different locations on here. Through here, you can set downtime codes and running codes, and you can handle micro stoppages and what views you want to show and all that fun stuff, right? So again, you really get a lot of flexibility in the system to do the customization, calculate how you want OEE to propagate up and down the plant. So you're not just getting machine OEE, you're getting line OEE based on your configurations and all of that fun stuff, right? You can really make it match whatever your plant layout and how your process actually runs, all through this interface, right? If you're familiar with Ignition, to use something like, to basically use any of these SparkMES packages, you're talking about knowing the ignition tag. At a minimum, you need to know how to use ignition tag connections, right? And then otherwise, you can do everything through a front-end interface. So that's OEE, right? That's the 5 minutes of OEE. Dwayne?
So, Eric, a couple questions came in. What is Spark using to talk with PLCs, OPC servers, and so forth?
Yeah, great question. So there's a lot of flexibility we get there. Ignition itself, we use Ignition's connectivity drivers to talk to the machines, and we can mix and match the protocols we use, because the nice thing about Ignition is that it takes all these different connection protocols and it normalizes it into one tag layer, so it makes the interface the same way, right? So most of the time, I'd say we use OPC. I would say an up-and-coming one we started using a lot is MQTT, as that's been kind of a growing thing in the industry, pulling data out of that. But we can also do things like TCP if we need to, or REST calls I've used before to do this kind of stuff. We can pretty much, as long as it can talk to the gateway, we can probably pull information from the device.
And then another question, is this an on-prem or a cloud solution?
Yes. So it really depends, right? You can do it either way. And we have customers that do both, right? Especially with OEE, I think cloud is a very popular choice if you're looking at just doing OEE, but you can do on-prem if you want to. Depends a lot on the different architectures and your different requirements as a company. Once you get into stuff like track and trace, it maybe gets a little weirder to do the cloud, but that's a whole other discussion, right, that we'd love to have. So.
And then another one before you move on,
Yeah.
Do we have this running in any large manufacturers?
Yeah, we do. We have companies that are doing multiple sites, lots of different data, lots of different machines and data points coming through, high throughputs. So yeah, we do have some pretty big power users, I would say, of the system. So.
And I said that was the last one, but they're still coming in here.
Sure.
This is a touchy one, but how efficient is the OEE module compared to SEPA-Soft?
That's I'll say this, I've never directly used SEPA-Soft really before. We at Flexware, we've done a lot of SEPA-Soft implementations as a company, especially before we started developing the SparkMES platform. So I don't have any direct comparisons. I've always gotten good feedback from the customers that have used both, but that's all I can really say. I've never done a direct comparison of them.
That's fair. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then another, which ignition module do we need to work with SparkMES?
Yeah, so SparkMES actually doesn't need very many ignition modules. The only required one, especially for OEE, is Perspective, and then the core platform. I usually recommend that people get WebDev, especially if you're doing track and trace. I think WebDev is a really good one, because WebDev powers our work instructions for the track and trace portion. But then there's other ones, optional ones you can use. We have tie-ins to alarm management, and like the alarm notification stuff. We have tie-ins. Tag history is a common one that people like to have, that I always recommend. So, but the only required module to make Spark run is Perspective. So.
Okay, I'll let you move on, Eric.
Cool. All right. Thanks for the questions, everybody. Let's hop into the next one, right? So that's OEE. Let's hop into track and trace. right? So like I said, track and trace is super large package, lots of functionality you can do inside of it. So I'm not going to cover nearly everything in it, right? But I just want to give you a taste of what it can do, and then we can talk. We can have another one of these later to talk about track and trace more. Look at more in depth to it. So, like I said, track and trace is everything from, hey, how do we take an order or a work order, a production order, a shop order, or whatever you want to call it, somebody hitting something on a Kanban screen, right? How do we take that, and then how do we route that through the whole process, right? And make sure it's going through the right steps, make sure all the things are within tolerance, and make sure we're showing work instructions to people correctly, right? All of that fun stuff all gets lumped into this one package that gives you all that flexibility and power. So the first part of that comes with the work order. Again, work orders, we are very work order, like we utilize work orders very heavily, but we're not tied to them. We do have customers who don't do work orders that use SparkMES, and that's perfectly fine. It's not a big deal for the platform. Also, sometimes work orders come in the form of like batches, which is also great. We can handle any of that stuff, right? But we do have a screen to create orders. Most of the time, we would receive those from ERP systems, but and receive that information in. Every part of track and trace a lot of times integrates with an ERP system, whether it be writing consumption data, right? Receiving order information, giving statuses, all that fun stuff. So track and trace has a lot of those capabilities. There are a lot of the tie-ins to do those sort of things, right? And the flexibility to be customized to integrate with whatever your ERP system is. But the real meat and potatoes of the track and trace system is the execution screen. So I'm going to show that. So again, execution screen is the most customized screen in the system, right? Everybody pretty much gets a new execution screen because we all know that if the execution screen doesn't match the way your process works, then people aren't going to use the screen because it's a pain in the butt, and then you're not going to get good data. So this screen changes a lot. Now, the other part of this too that I want to be very clear on, track and trace doesn't require manual data entry. Same way with OEE, track and trace can be completely manual, it can be completely automated, it can be anywhere in between, right? Sometimes you have some stations that are manual, some stations that are automated. Great, perfect. It all depends on your configuration of the system through our web interface. But in general, the idea of track and trace, you're at a station where the machine's sitting there, it receives a serial number through a barcode scanner or something, or you have a person there that chooses a serial number. That's not the serial number I want to use. I want to use this one. Maybe I will use that one actually. So we're gonna go. You can choose a different serial number you want to run, and then the UI can show that kind of information, right? So we can do things like showing work instructions for a specific step in the process, whether those be PDFs, they be videos that you want to see, or something like that. However, whatever work instructions you want to show, we show them on the screen. That we could provide those based on the step you're currently at. We also ask for people to enter data, right? They can scan boxes that they're consuming parts from. They're scanning serial numbers of components they're consuming and all of that fun stuff, whether that be, again, from the PLC or somebody using like a wedge scanner. All of that can happen. We can do process data entry where we're recording values or we're writing values, right, to the machine, writing set points to the machines or writing set points to the operators so they can know what they need to do, provide these more dynamic limits that are maybe even outside of work instructions. We can show that kind of information. We can do process deviations, track as everything checks through the different steps, cycle time tracking of the different steps that are going on. How long does a serial number or a batch spend at a specific station? All of that fun stuff is in track and trace, right? So like I said, a lot of functionality in here that you can do. And again, everything there is manual or automated, right? Handshake with the equipment, machine gives us data, or handshake with the operator, and the operator gives us data and hits buttons on the screen. And with that too, really the whole part of this, right? The main reason you're using a track and trace system is, well, first off, maybe to do quality control in the line if you're wanting to do quality control, or it could also be to give you a genealogy report, right? So we also have, a genealogy report that comes out of the box, but then also an open database schema that you can use to really be able to write your own queries, right? You want to know how to query a database schema? Great, do it. We can help you out with that, help you create views. We have some reporting database structures that we use to help make it easier to query. But you can see all the data. We're tracking how many parts were consumed, what quantity, values that were written or read, all of that fun stuff. Times things were completed. right? And all of that, again, is configurable through you need to know how to create tags in Ignition. So how do you drag your tags in so we know about them, connect your equipment, pull in the tags, which obviously we can help with too. So we need to know that part. And then how do you configure your processes, right? So everything you just saw there, I configured through this app, from what steps do we go through, what stations, steps, consumptions that are happening, work instructions, process data, all that fun stuff, right? Everything is configured through the web. So we're not having to do a bunch of data. You're not having to do database work, config files. That all kind of sucks. So you can just do it through here. I'm not going to get into this screen too much because this would take us probably a whole nother hour to talk through this screen and all the stuff you can do in track and trace. So I think that's really all I wanted to talk through on the track and trace package. So I think next, I'm going to hop from the track and trace package over to the next package, which is going to be quality. So I would say track and trace and OEE are like the two largest packages. Usually they're like the founding block, the core of an MES deployment. Typically you're wanting to do one or the other, but you don't necessarily have to. These other packages usually kind of help supplement the data, but they're also standalone, right? Some people do just want a quality system like this, and that's perfectly fine, right? So this screen here, so what does our quality system have to do with? First off, I'll say a lot of people think the quality package would be used to track quality parameters on the line and make sure things are within spec and that kind of stuff. That is actually falls under the track and trace package. What our quality package does do is our quality package handles how do we track things when you're running a part or you're looking at something in inventory and something is just off about it and it needs to go, or it fails something maybe on the line, right? And it needs to get routed over to the quality team so the quality team can go and do their analysis on it, investigate, do whatever rework processes they may need to do on it, tests so they may need to do on it, and be able to track all the information about that, right? To make sure you can, again, at the end of the day, if somebody says, hey, like assembly XYZ, what happened to it? You can say, oh, well, it got a non-conformance logged. It went over here. This person worked on it. Then this person worked on it. They did these tests and all that fun stuff, right? So the way this works, we provide a screen to allow for operators or whoever to log these components, whether they be components that are on the line or components that are in inventory just sitting on a shelf, right? It lets them log in, fill out a form. This form is completely customizable, right? So whatever forms you want to fill out, that we want the operator to give us a little information about why they're putting a non-conformance or routing this for failure analysis. They can just fill out this form, and then that would actually tag that box of parts or that assembly or whatever as quality hold. And once a part or box is on quality hold, it's not getting used anywhere, right? You're even able to, when you set up your production model, to set through inventory. If you're using inventory, you can set require that locations can only accept certain places in your plant can only accept certain inventory types, right? So you can physically prevent a box, logically prevent a box from getting to a specific place in your plant. And also it prevents it from being consumed. If you try to do a consumption on a box that's in quality hold, the system's going to be like, we're not doing that. Or if you try to ship it out the door, it's going to be like, no. So yeah, a lot of stuff there. So once it goes into quality hold though, then we need to track it through the whole quality process, right? And that's where you get this Kanban board here. This Kanban board, so when you create a non-conformance ticket, the ticket would show up here on this board like so. You see we have 3 tickets right now. And then you can take those tickets and you can start driving them through the process, right? So you can see here we have 4 states. Again, all of this is just database driven. So if you want to add a 5th field to it, takes like 2 seconds, right? Not a big deal. Very expandable in that way. So I can go to any ticket on here though. And right now I don't have any new tickets here, but I have, it looks like I have 1 ticket that's assigned to admin, that's in progress. If I want to say, oh, okay, well, what's going on with this ticket? I can click on it. And then here I can see different pieces of information about this ticket, right? So I can see the name of the ticket. I can see the stat. I can see and change the status of the ticket. I can change who it's assigned to. Unfortunately, perspective doesn't make drag and drop super easy, so you have to change it to here, which is big sad, but do that sometime. So you can move the ticket around there, assign it to the people, make sure it's all going through. But even more so than that, you can also track pieces of data about it. And so on the right side of this, right, we have a form that is more extensive than the form that the first person filled out, right? So the operator filled out a subset of this form. You can see there's some fields already filled out. Some of these are filled out by the system. Some are filled out by the operator. But there's also other fields here that we need the quality engineer to fill out. So they can go in here and they can say, okay, it looks like I have a required field here. I can set the disposition for this to say, I don't know, I'm going to use this as this, using as is. Whenever you change a field, form field in here, you do have to leave a comment. Why are you changing it? So we make sure that we're tracking everything about it. And all of that is stored for auditing purposes. So like I think if I go to, like let's say I go to this troubleshooting, actual troubleshooting. Yep. I'm just going to save that. So all of these updates that are happening are audited, right? So I could say what got changed to what was the description entered, who did it when. So again, you have a log of all of this with your forms. So, and all that fun stuff, right? So I'm kind of, I think that gets the point across here, right? So you can go through, you can disposition and enter field data, track comments about what's going on, just arbitrary comments. So all of this is stuff you can track about tickets. And once you do the disposition, then that handshakes with our other packages, if you're using those, to then rectify whatever needs to be fixed, right? So if the assembly was on the line, right, let's let it run again, right? If you're using track and trace, right? If you're using inventory, let's let it be actually a good state now. You can move it to wherever you need to move it to. So that's really our quality package. So in a nutshell. So.
And Eric, couple of quick things.
Yeah.
Milford, we will be sharing a recording of this webinar, so by all means, you could share this with some of your associates. And another question came in. What about integration with Microsoft Teams? Is that anything we've done at this point?
It actually is. Funnily enough, what year was it? If you're ever interested in our Microsoft Teams capabilities, in the Ignition Build-a-thon, which is a competition Ignition puts on, Inductive Automation puts on every year to have people compete to build cool stuff, right? In 2020, I want to say, we actually were in the Build-a-thon, and for the Build-a-thon, we created a Teams integration package so that you could use to do Teams integration. So we have a lot of code there that previously wasn't really, people couldn't do it in Ignition, and you could after we did those changes. So yes, we can definitely do that kind of thing. Similar to how we do other notifications. There are a couple limitations to it. And there's a couple IT things you have to do with it. So, but yeah, we can definitely do it.
And that's all the questions we have for right now. But just a heads
Perfect.
up, we've got about 15 minutes left.
Great. Perfect. We're about right on schedule then. Great. All right. So that's quality. So we've talked about OEE, track and trace quality. Next, I'm going to talk about scheduling. So, scheduling package with Spark, like I said, it's a little bit multifaceted, right? And it depends kind of on what you're doing, right? So there's two things that we see people use the scheduling package for. First is for order scheduling. So being able to track orders or even jobs. So we've seen people look at using this for like job shop sort of things, like tracking like maintenance tasks or that kind of thing on different machines, who's going to do what. And then also you can use it for shift scheduling. Or I guess maybe not. Yeah, shift scheduling. You can schedule shifts with it. You can schedule breaks, weekends, all that fun stuff, and manage those kind of things. And then that ties into OEE, of course, right? So this is our scheduling package here. So you can see I've already laid out a couple items here, right? But you can lay out these different orders onto the timeline. So I have 3 different machines that I'm scheduling for. I can say, or these could also be lines, right? You can set any location to be as scheduled, and then it'll show up here. So you choose what locations you're scheduling for. You can create orders from them over here, right? And then you can give them a start and end date, and then they'll show up on here. You can get little progress bars of how that order is running. Probably these bars are a little bit weird, You probably wouldn't be running this order already if you haven't finished this one, but you can see progress bars of like, where are you at, right? So this order is scheduled to go from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. and it's 5, right? But I see, oh, I'm actually only 50% of the 55% of the way through. We probably have a problem, right? That we need to update. And so you can kind of get that visibility here, right? This also integrates into OEE and the fact that you can know what orders running, so we can change cycle times based on those orders. It also can integrate into track and trace, so we can prioritize orders based on the schedule that's actually been delivered. Once these orders are on here, you can also do things like, oh, okay, like this order 3, like I'm actually going to start it, whatever. Or maybe I decide this order is actually going to take a little bit longer. I can go in here and I can just drag that over here, and then boom, now it's changed, and all that fun stuff. Or maybe this weekend we're going to start the weekend, or we're going to work some overtime, so I'm going to drag this over, right? So you can just manage all your scheduling here, right? You can create this. You can have recurring events, right? So these breaks and these weekends could be something you configure, say this is going to happen every week, right? And so it'll automatically create those for that week, right? So you're not having to go lay out your weekends every time, because that would kind of suck. So one thing to note about this, right? This is a manual scheduling tool. And it has the potential to grow into some sort of level of automated scheduling, but it is not automated scheduling out of the box. But we have worked with people to do some level of automation on it, where you are trying to figure out, hey, we sit down with you guys, what are your processes? What are the things you think about with scheduling? And then you can build it into that, right? But it has a lot of the tendrils, a lot of the capabilities to do this sort of like manual scheduling, tie into everything else, and all that fun stuff. So, yeah, I think that's all I really wanted to talk about with scheduling here. Yeah, so like I said, tracking orders, downtimes, maintenance windows, all that fun stuff. I think the last package that I want to talk about today is the inventory management package. So like I said, the inventory management package is, I always like to call it an inventory light package. A lot of people find it a little strange that we have an inventory management package. But the reason we do is we've actually found a lot of value in it. Where do we see, a lot of our customers do have ERP systems that are inventory masters. Where do we see the inventory package actually get used in our customer base? A couple of different ways, right? One is we have customers we worked with that do not have an ERP system, right? And so in those cases, this is a less expensive, less monolithic inventory system, when maybe they don't need all of the extra stuff, right? That's one way. Another option we see too is where you're using some of the other packages of Spark, so people are getting used to the SparkMES or Ignition screens, and they're kind of liking the way they flow. And so they want to have, even though inventory is stored in the ERP system, they want to have a common interface that flows for the operator. So you're not breaking the operator's flow, I guess, when they're trying to do these different actions. Because we all know that there's a lot of problems when you have too many applications they have to deal with at once, right? So people use this as an interface to do moves, receives, all that fun stuff, and then we just back flush up to the ERP system, and we're just staying in sync with the ERP system. The third way I would say is when maybe the ERP system doesn't get granular enough. The ERP system only cares if there's inventory on the line or if it's in the warehouse, but you want to know, hey, it's on the line, but it's in slot rack 3 at station 4, row, whatever, right? Like you can do all that stuff through this, right? And so this would backflush to a larger group in the ERP system, but you can have that more granular view here. So what does the inventory package really do? Again, it's just really letting you track all the movements, where's inventory at, and all that fun stuff. You can see all the inventory you have in your plant, which I don't have a whole lot in my demo environment, but you can go to any location to see what's there, right? And you kind of drill in and see different spots, box numbers, part numbers, serial numbers that are in those boxes, inventory types of those boxes. Like I said, this also lets you control what inventory moves from place to place. You can do, you can do receiving inventory in the door by scanning part numbers, lot numbers, all that fun stuff. Maybe scanning serial numbers inside of the boxes, choosing where those parts are actually going to go in your plant. All of that stuff you can do in here. You can move parts around and do scanning of boxes, choosing locations I want to go to. Again, one thing I'll say too with this, if I always choose the wrong one. That's the wrong one. This one. Then you can kind of see in here too, like we can do manual scans too, right? So you can have these like more phone apps. So if you have like an Android scanner or something that people are using, right, you can have these like move inventory screens where people can walk around, scan, be done. It's a very common way we see people do inventory. And again, if you have a current system or an ERP system that doesn't support that, maybe you could use this to give you that sort of flexibility of interface to really streamline it for the process while also keeping your ERP system up to date. And then it also has, splitting inventory, physical inventory capabilities. So you can do, or cycle counts, some people call it. You can do these sort of cycle count periodically that you need to do to make sure your inventory levels are good. And then, of course, with this inventory, everything is audited that's happening inside of the plant. So anytime anything is received, anything's moved, anything is split, whatever, adjusted for whatever reason, everything is tracked, right? So we have all of that auditing, and presumably we're putting into an ERP system too that would also audit it if you have another level of that if you need it. So yeah, that is the inventory package of Spark. So
Eric,
mm-hmm.
Luca is asking, does Spark cover any WMS functionality?
Not really. It's not really a WMS system. It's really limited to the fact of being able to move, receive inventory. When you're talking about WMS functionality, I assume you're meaning like job management and stuff. We have implemented job management systems based around this inventory package for customers, but we never have merged those. Like we never have done anything in the core package for that. It's all been custom for the customer's job management around it. AGV integration even we've done with it, right? So these kind of things we can do it, but it doesn't come out of the box, right? It's really meant to be simplified.
Okay, and then Michael is asking a question about track and trace. So okay. I'll just read it here and hopefully it'll make sense to you. But track and trace can schedule quality checks that allow the operator to measure variables where spec limits will vary by material. That is a question.
Yes, so you can, how do I want to show this? So there is a way, and when you're making a part, that's the wrong screen, when you're making a part in the system, and I guess, Dwayne, do we have a lot more questions? Because if we have a lot more questions, I won't show all of this. But
I can't see them right now. I'm still on this one question. But I'll add on a second part to this question. Are out of spec measurements automatically alarmed in some fashion?
Yeah. Okay. So we'll talk about that too. So so you can set specs in here. So you can go to any part and you can set different dimensions of the part to you can set values. So I can say like the case width is going to be like 5 or something, and we can write those down to the machine based on the part number. So you can do that kind of spec definition in here. When you're looking at routing and specifications that you want to do, and you mentioned limits. Currently, we support writing down limits that change based on the part number. In our validations in the system, this is not the best revision to use. Let me go to here, maybe. Yeah, let's see this. So when you configure a process data read or write in the system, you can specify limits on them. Right now, the limits are set at a process level. You can create a new instance of the process per part number. Some people do that. Making these change based on the part attributes that are there would not be a hard customization, but it's not something we do right now out of the box, right? So again, we can support writing down those dimensions to the machine based on part number, changing the types of data we're writing down, all that fun stuff. These specific limits are not integrated into those right now. But again, probably something that'll be on our roadmap pretty soon.
Okay.
The other question about being able to alarm on failures, when you configure a limit check per data point, you can choose a resolution for it, right? Here, I'm just setting the fail. I only have one example in this, right? Fail, which means that we're just going to tell the machine that it failed. So we could have different resolutions and different resolution strategies with each one of these. A common other one we do is non-conformance, right? So we want to, hey, this failed, let's kick it off into a quality hold, right? Well, if we hit a fail, maybe we want to call somebody or text somebody. Ignition and Spark, because we use Ignition, have the capabilities to do emails, text messages, phone calls, I guess Teams notifications, right? So any of those we can do.
Okay, and then Paul is asking how are updates and upgrades handled?
Yeah, so one thing about SparkMES, since like I said before, it's not a product, it's more of a starter kit for these sort of things. There's different facets of that, right? So first, you don't pay a license cost every year for SparkMES. It's a one-time cost, right? If you have it, you're cool. The way we handle updates past that is that updates are done on just like a T&E basis, right? So you say, we would come to you, we'd say, hey, we have these new features, or you'd say, hey, I want this new feature. We would talk about it. You can say, yes, I want that. No, I don't want that. And then we would work out how much that's going to cost to actually do, right? On a more time and expense basis. It's more of a service sort of thing, right? So instead of a yearly subscription to keep things updated, we just do it when you want to update for whatever features you want to choose to implement, integrate, we can do that. We can also help with conversations when we're setting up the system. If you guys are planning on doing customizations to the platform, we can work with you to help you understand what parts of the system you can mess with and what parts of the system you should maybe stay away from more, just to help with like the compatibility, right, with the base framework. Because we encourage you to do your own things, but obviously you're fine to get really deep into the weeds and start changing core stuff, but it could make upgrades a little bit harder. But also it doesn't void a warranty. We can still do an upgrade. But yeah, so teeny basis, right, is kind of how we do that. That
Okay,
makes sense.
that's all the questions.
Great.
2 minutes left.
Okay. Well, I don't really have anything else I can talk through in 2 minutes. So I just want to take a second then to say thanks everybody for joining the call today. I appreciate all the questions, and hopefully you got something out of this that can help you further look into the MES journey you're on, and help you to make some decisions one way or another on how you want to do it. I know Dwayne is going to send out a recording after this to everybody on the call, so you can feel free to share that, review it, whatever. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Would love to chat about some of the different possibilities of SparkMES and how it can help you guys. So again, thanks everybody for joining today.
SparkMES, an MES accelerator for ignition.